Hi, I'm John Pawson. Next year, the government will initiate the new £3,000 tuition fees, which will leave students leaving uni with not only a degree, but a hefty debt. Money! I'm here at Derby University to talk to students about their debt. Excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
No, it's cool.
Do you mind me asking if you feel stressed at all by financial debt?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, the financial stress that all students do have is just too much on top of all the university stress as well. I mean, you've got all your essays, your dissertation to do, and then you've got to worry about getting a job to pay off your rent, and then your student fees, and your loan really doesn't go that far.
I suppose you've heard next year the government are initiating their £3,000 tuition fees. Do you think this will cause any difference? Do you reckon it will help or hinder?
Quite frankly, I'm glad I came to university when I did, because I feel sorry for anybody who's starting uni next year and has got more of a burden on the shoulders with more debt. Being in debt is not a nice word, is it? So anything you've got to pay back is really bad. But I'm just thinking, I'm living for the moment at the moment, and so I'm spending what I am and just trying to get all my work done, work as much as I can, and then worrying about the debts and the consequences later.
Excellent, thank you very much. Money! Excuse me. Hi there, do you mind me asking you a few questions?
No.
Do you mind me asking if you feel the strain from financial debt as a student?
I'd have to say yes, I'm afraid. I've got £3 left of my overdraft to last me until loan day, and I'm seriously considering studying a kidney.
So it's got to a very serious stage.
It has indeed, yeah. It's strange because this is our final year, the one that we're meant to be concentrating on dissertations, and they give us less student loan than ever before.
I see, yeah. You say, does the financial stress and strain put down on your work, do you think?
Well, definitely. You're under a lot of pressure to get extra finances, take up a job, a part-time job, when you should be studying.
Do you feel that the government do enough for students?
Not really, no. I mean, in the old days when you used to get grants, I mean, people would spend a lot more time studying. So it's just not the case anymore. I only have lectures for 2.5 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm just desperately trying to find a job.
Now, you mentioned the grants. Next year the government are introducing their £3,000 tuition fees, but alongside this there will be a national grant available. Do you think that this will encourage more students, or do you think the £3,000 tuition fee will worry students to bother coming to university at all?
I think people will reevaluate why they want to come to university.
Personally speaking, if these new tuition fees had been in place when you started university, do you think you would have still come?
I would have, but I might have left after a little while because the stresses are due to slow me down.
Money! What's your view on the government's new £3,000 tuition fees?
I don't think it's really fair, really, because they're expecting us to come to college, get in debt, and then hopefully you go away and then get a job.
Do you feel that perhaps it's a bit of scaremongering by them, because it's been said by critics that maybe this is trying to decrease the amount of people getting degrees to help employers with choosing the right people for the job?
Well, they claim they want better students to get better education so they can get better jobs. But also it's like quite this big whack of scare, like you said, scare tactic, scare people away. So the average people are not going to bother. They're just going to go and get the dead-end job.
Money! Do you ever feel financially stressed due to the loans and tuition fees at uni?
Yeah, I feel stressed, especially in my third year, because my student loan has gone down this year and my rent has gone up, petrol prices have gone up, everything seems to have gone up except for my loan. So I feel like I've really got to budget this year especially.
What do you think of the government's new £3,000 tuition fees? I mean, will this cause even more problems for people in your position?
Well, yeah, I think it's going to drive people out of going to university. I think it's just going to be two sections, people that can get the financial aid and people that can afford to go. And I think the middle, which I think is the majority section, are going to get drove out of further education.
Clara Donovan, as Student Advice Centre Manager, you must deal with plenty of students with financial concerns. Is there a common problem that you see, financially speaking?
The major kind of overriding problem from a financial point of view is probably the commitment that students need to make now to be able to come and continue on with their academic studies.
Do you think enough's done by the university itself to try and help out these people with their worries?
I think it's very difficult for the university. They're actually in a position at the moment where it stands that it's far more government-based than it's down to the university. So the university are obliged to follow statistics and procedures that are placed by the government. From the university's point of view, they do provide financial advisors, and they offer the same advice that I would offer within the student union. I think that it's very difficult with the amount of students that are actually within an institution. That obviously you do have your finance department, and for them, obviously first and foremost, they do tend to see students as a statistic because that's their role that they are playing within the university. From our side of things, obviously we do work with students on an individual basis, looking at their individual predicament in regards to their financial support, and we try and actually work on a far more personal level and then liaise with the finance department.
Students obviously are already under a lot of stress from deadlines and work, and especially for third years with their dissertations and research projects. Do you think that the financial side of it adds to the stress like a lot, or is it just sort of a minor factor?
I think it certainly does, because aside from the financial obligation, it's also very likely the first time they've moved away from home, so they're dealing with all of that. It's obviously from an academic side of things, they are committing themselves to a course that will be a challenge for them, and I think it just is an impact yet, and that further stress.
You mentioned the socialising side of uni life, and obviously that plays a big role. Do you think that perhaps there's pressure on students to, especially in the first couple of weeks of uni, to actually go out and obviously try and make friends, but go out every single night and drink and spend a lot of the first part of their alone? And do you think that has a knock-on effect for the rest of the year in terms of the finance and of course the workload?
From having been an ex-student myself when grants existed, the mentality of student life has changed greatly. Certainly when I was a student and the grants still existed, the mentality of students in a nutshell was that students were more up for it. That's the easiest way of putting it. In that, from a social side of things, it was a different generation, and I think it's very apparent to us working within the student union that has actually dramatically changed, and that students fundamentally come to university first and foremost to get the degree, which kind of probably feels like common sense, but certainly there has been a transition there. I do believe that it is important for students to actually go out and socialise with people. It's your first time, as we mentioned earlier, that you're potentially living by yourself. It can be very daunting and intimidating for students, and it's really important that they start to feel integrated in something. So from the social side of things, it is extremely important that they get involved with those kind of things. On the other side, from the financial side of things, that's why we look to run campaigns within the student union right from the word go to say, as much as this is important, it is really, vital that you actually budget within that.
Now you mentioned the grants. Of course, next year the new government policy of the £3,000 tuition fees comes back in, and the grants coming back in with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's gonna help having the grants rather than a lower tuition fee, or do you think it's not going to make much difference?
Each student that comes to the university, whether they're a mature student, whether they're an international student, whether you're stereotypical 18-year-old, have a different story to tell. And the background and the financial situation you're in and the financial situation your parents will be in will all have an impact on whether that therefore becomes more of a productive way of going about things, or whether it actually hinders the student from a financial side of things. But it's very difficult to give an opinion on whether we think it will be a good thing or not. It's obviously something that the government have decided, and there's little that we can do about it. It's certainly not from an institutional point of view. It's very much led by the government. So we will just try and support each individual student as best as we can.
It seems clear that current students still have their doubts about the new government initiative, but until it's released in September of this year, I guess no one will know whether it's a help or a hindrance. This is John Pawson for the University of Derby journalism course in the atrium. Money!